Hello, you're watching World Talks. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. Peace talks with Ukraine are not Russia's top priority, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on April 18th at the Antalya Diplomacy Forum in Turkey. And while diplomacy slows, the consequences on the ground are accelerating, with concerns growing that disrupted energy systems could leave millions facing water shortages during the peak summer heat. Now, for more, we're joined by Victoria Voytsitska, energy expert at the International Center for Ukrainian Victory and former People's Deputy of Ukraine. Good to have you back with us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So this Antalya Security Conference, just to give a little bit of context for our viewers, I want to play exactly that clip of Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, and then I'll chat to you about it. Let's roll that now.
We view the possibility of resuming negotiations in Istanbul positively. Currently, resuming negotiations is not our #1 priority. We have not forced negotiations on anyone. We have always assumed that if a partner is ready, then it will be our turn. And this is despite the very dismal track record of our Ukrainian colleagues with whom we negotiated. We are not avoiding negotiations. When someone is ready, let them propose. We will see if the proposed time frame, location, and agenda are suitable. Our goals, as defined by the Supreme Commander-in-Chief, are being achieved.
All right, so not a #1 priority, but generally get your sense from what he said there and if it has any merit.
Well, Mr. Lavrov is trying to project strength on the international arena, while clearly understanding that Russia cannot achieve its war objectives. And there are three, basically, reasons why Lavrov is doing that. Well, first and foremost, we need to understand that the war in the Middle East, the Israeli-American war against Iran, has created conditions where, unfortunately, Russia is benefiting from the decisions that are made by the United States that allows them to sell their crude oil in international markets. It's not yet lifting the sanctions, but it's the means how to provide the market with additional crude oil volumes, given the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is closed, there is a blockade from both Iran and the United States. And Trump's administration hasn't found any other better solution but to allow Russia to sell its crude oil in international markets. Of course, that will provide Russia with additional stream of cash flow that is so needed for it to maintain the war machine against Ukraine. So Russians are counting on that additional stream of income will be received by the Russian state budget. Second, I think given the fact that Trump's administration is fully focused on the Middle East and the Iran war, Russia is counting on probably on the fatigue that is accumulated at Trump's administration and Trump himself towards Ukraine. So what they are trying to achieve is getting what they've been trying to sell for a long time, getting into the deal stage where the deals between Russia and the United States will be a priority, and Ukraine will no longer be a priority for the Trump's administration, and therefore there will be either bigger pressure on Ukraine to sign the peace at whatever terms the aggressor is trying to push on Ukraine, or Trump and his administration and the United States will walk away. And then Russia will receive the options or will have an opportunity for getting their sanctions lifted, deals done, etc., on what they've been counting on for already over 12 months. And the third thing that Lavrov or Kremlin is counting on is that there will be a fatigue, Ukraine fatigue growing in Europe, although I wouldn't count on that if I were them. The defeat of Orban regime in Hungary is one of the best examples where Russians attempt to to disunite Europe and European countries in its support of Ukraine has failed, although there are still certain actors in Europe that are being supported by Russians and the Russians are counting on. So that would be my explanation, that they're trying to drag their feet, they're trying to count or try to get any benefit from the lost momentum and attention from the Trump administration on Ukraine, and at the same time they're counting on their attempts to actually gain control over Donbass during the summer offensive.
Interesting points there. I want to just follow up on what you just said earlier about that Russia is hoping for some of these profits. I mean, you mentioned the Iran war between the U.S. and Israel, but also those profits for Russia. I mean, they're very much about that infrastructure. They have the oil infrastructure, and just we recently have had what some Ukrainians call kinetic sanctions. So these attacks on oil refineries, etc., especially in the Baltics. We've just had another one recently, I believe, in Krasnodar Krai. Now, this is responsible for about one of the top, for one of the, I think, 10 facilities, top 10 facilities for Russia. So looking at this now, is Lavrov trying to, let's say, cover the reality? Because, I mean, how these kind of attacks seem to be more consistent, more of them, and they seem to be slowing down Russia's ability to export all this oil and gas.
Yes, what we've seen and what Ukraine is doing is actually implementing the real sanctions on Russian oil and gas sector, targeting, among other things, oil refineries, ports, and therefore really limiting the ability of Russia to export its crude oil and the energy products to international markets. Still, Russia has a lot of abilities and a lot of other facilities that are not being targeted yet or have not been fully, completely destroyed. However, what Ukraine is trying to achieve is to deprive the ability of Russia to, first of all, as I mentioned, have the access to international market with its products by targeting ports. And second of all, is to create conditions internally within Russia where the products such as gasoline, such as diesel, will, especially during the time of the springtime, will be limited. So we are doing our work while the United States, unfortunately, is creating conditions for Russia to capitalize on the increased prices for oil, for the crude oil, as the result of the war in Iran. So yes, we are decreasing the volumes of the export of Russia on the one hand. On the other hand, it has the ability to generate equal amounts, if even not greater, because of the prices spikes that we've seen for the last months.
Mm-hmm. And then also you mentioned with a change that there won't be any fatigue in Europe on support of Ukraine. You mentioned the election in Hungary, Orban out, but other actors. I want to ask you if you meant specifically maybe Bulgaria in this case. We've had now recent elections there. It seems very much that if we're looking at the information that Mr. Radev will be the new prime minister, although we're still waiting for how he's going to rule. I mean, he's been outspoken not to deliver weapons to Ukraine, etc. How do you see that relationship? Is he one of these actors that you were alluding to that could be a problem for Ukraine?
He is one of the possible actors. I wouldn't say that he will block all the initiatives that will be related to support of Ukraine. I doubt that he will participate in the European joint efforts to provide Ukraine with weapons, but I doubt that he will block, for example, the decision that is related to $90 billion of the support, financial support of Ukraine. On the other hand, we need to remember that, for example, if we look at France, we are looking at quite closely, because although President Macron's being a very vocal supporter of Ukraine, and he is one of the greatest friends of our country, Elections are glooming, and it's his last term, and we don't know what will be the outcome of the future elections in France as well. And Marine Le Pen and her force is well known that it's been backing the Kremlin's agenda, being very negative with respect to support of Ukraine, never recognized Crimea being part of Ukraine. So there are other countries and other actors that being for years, if not decades, supported by Russia and Russian money, and they've been vocal voices of Russian propaganda on European continent, and therefore we have to be extra cautious all the time.
I believe also that's what Mr. Radev has said not that long ago, that Crimea is not able to be gotten back from Russia. But just really quickly, I want to call on your expertise on energy one more time. With the sustained infrastructure attacks, the energy attacks from Russia against Ukraine, there might be a danger for water in the summer. Connect the dots there, four of yours. How is this connected, and how dangerous is the situation when we come to water in summer?
Yes, indeed. Well, first of all, we need to understand that Russians been targeting dams that provide the ability for Ukraine to accumulate enough water to provide civilian with the drinkable water. It's been already for years. The well-known, unfortunate, very tragic story of Kakhovka Dam, man-made tragedy that left hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians without access to drinkable water for quite a long time. There were attempts to destroy Kyiv Dam as well. And just recently, Russia had deliberately targeted the dam that is providing the reservoir for the water for the whole Kharkiv region, where millions of people live. So these are just cruel attacks on the civil strategic infrastructure, and those deliberate attempts are the textbook war crime according to the Geneva Convention. So in addition to destroyed or severely damaged energy infrastructure that actually provides the ability to deliver water, drinkable especially water, to the consumers, to the citizens, the shortages of electricity, they also have a negative impact on the sewage systems as well. And during summer times, as we can imagine, such challenges are additional burdens on civilian population, and not just civilian population, but businesses, etc., but especially badly felt by civilians.
All right, so thanks for giving us the latest there. Always a pleasure speaking to you. That was our guest, Victoria Voytsitska from the International Center for Ukrainian Victory. And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more. Goodbye.